Okay, first thing you notice when you walked in, Jonathan Whiteberg looks over to his right and says, "Oh, it's changed to Friday."
Wow. Oh, yeah. Romeo.
Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing you'll notice is I'm going to try my best not to talk very much because I had ambitions to have the test Thursday and I got to move back to Friday. I definitely can't move to Monday, so we got to get moving. This is where we left off yesterday, talking about Roosevelt's foreign policy, and I think we started talking about Taft, right? We talked about the legend that most kids remember about Taft. They won't remember anything about his politics or progressive era, but they'll remember that he's the one that got stuck in the bathtub. Or did he? The fact is, he was really large. And the legend is that he actually got stuck and had to be, it took like 6 guys to help him get out. Don't know if totally that's true, but we do know they did change the bathroom furniture when Taft came to the White House. So, and then did we show you the picture of the 4 guys in the tub?
No.
There was only one person in the second period class that ever heard the old nursery rhyme, and it goes something like this. Rub a dub dub, 3 men in a tub. Anybody ever heard that before? Okay, I don't know the rest of it, but I remember when I was little, I never really questioned it. I gotta learn the rest of it. Like, rub a dub dub, 3 men in a tub. And they used to have, you know how you got little first grade books? So you'd be reading the nursery rhymes, and there'd be a picture of 3 guys in a tub. I'm like, I didn't really think anything of it. I don't know why. All right, things about this friend of Teddy. He was handpicked, Serenity, by Teddy, but he wasn't Teddy. Look, you could have a guy, you could have another politician that's very similar to a person and their beliefs, but Teddy Roosevelt was such an incredibly strong personality. Taft could never live up to that. He was the first to have a cow or the last to have a cow on the grounds for his fresh milk. He actually became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court after he was president. So you talk about a guy that really made it, right? He became president of the United States, and then he became the head of the another branch of government. I guess if he became like Speaker of the House, he would have had the hat trick. You know what I'm saying? Was he stuck in the bathroom? That's the legend. Well, his relationship with Teddy takes a turn because here's the thing. Was Roosevelt a progressive? Absolutely, very strong. Was Taft a progressive? Absolutely, but not as strong. So while they're working through these, you've seen these 2 T words a lot, trusts and tariffs, right? The progressive movement economically had a lot to do with busting up these trusts and deciding how much of a tariff we should place on these corporations. So I hope this doesn't scar you for life. But this is kind of a picture that was taken at the time to show that, hey, 4 people can fit in this new bathtub we had to get because President Taft is in office. They all got their clothes on. It's just a demonstration. Just to show how big the bathtub is.
They should have put Derek in the White House to save him from drowning in the bathroom.
Let's start Derek because
Okay. So Taft was a progressive reformer, but he was more moderate. Again, some people you just don't want to follow, right? Like in athletics, nobody wants to be like, who's going to be the next coach of the Patriots? I would hate to be in that position. How are you going to win 6? You're going to be expected to win 6 Super Bowls. Or, you know, actually the guy's handling it pretty good right now. A young guy, who's going to replace Tom Brady as the New England quarterback? Well, actually, last year, right? It didn't work so well. Cam Newton, no, you know Tom Brady, so he's out, right? So, who's going to be the next Steeler quarterback? That's going to be a hard act to follow. Teddy Roosevelt, who's going to follow him? It's going to be tough. So Taft as good as he was, as respected as he was, as well liked as he was, he's no TR. There becomes a rift within the Republican Party. You've got Taft, who everybody likes, but he's not as strong as Teddy. It's going to play a part in the next election. Taft has served, he got elected in 1908, and there's going to be another election in 1912. Will he win? They showed in the video, if you remember the video, Teddy's actually going to come back and try to run for a third term, which hadn't been done because of George Washington, right? Who's going to serve? Who's got the audacity to think that they're going to serve longer as president than the father of our country, George Washington? Well, Roosevelt said, I'm not going to do it, but here's my guy Taft. But after Taft's presidency, his first term comes to an end, there's a big rift. There's the strong, really aggressive wing of the Republican Party that's led by Roosevelt, and then there's Taft, who is progressive, but he's just not as strong. Does that all make sense? He'd be considered more moderate. So what happens then in 1912? Everybody caught up, I hope? In 1912, you've got Taft. You guys know what the word incumbent means? The incumbent is the one that's already in the office. So usually they have an advantage, right? Because they're established. They've got the backing of the party because they're the kind of the de facto leader of the party. Well, guess what? Taft only gets 23% of the vote. That's like a historic low for a person that's already in office. There's the man you've heard before in bold. He's in bold because he's going to win. His name is Woodrow Wilson. He was actually governor of New Jersey. There's a prestigious college in New Jersey called Princeton. He was president of that university. This guy has all the credentials needed to be president. So the Democrats put him up against Taft, but he's not only up against Taft. Old TR says, I got to get back in there and fix this. So he creates his own party. You guys remember what the nickname of it was? The Bull Moose Party. Because it's like Taft, that's kind of the symbol of Roosevelt, right? Strong, a big animal, strong animal, bull moose, testosterone, machismo, Teddy Roosevelt, a man's man. 42% Wilson gets. Wait, can you win with only 42%? Don't you have to get at least 50% to win? Usually, if there's two parties. But you don't always win anyway, remember, because there's an electoral thing. Roosevelt joins the election, and his candidacy draws more than 28% of the vote. He got more votes than Taft because he's Teddy Roosevelt, right? But what he did was, who's good at math? What if you add up Taft's vote and Roosevelt's vote? What's it add up to? At least 51%, right? And what did Wilson get? What did Wilson get?
42.
Wilson would not have won. Wilson would not have won if the Republicans didn't have this split between the really strong progressive candidate Roosevelt and the really nice guy, moderate candidate Taft. But that's what this is called. Who can say this word up here? Underline on top. Can you pronounce that? Plurality. When there's more than one candidate, it doesn't take a majority. It just takes a plurality. You get more votes than all the other people. This has happened a few times in history. It happened 30 years ago. In America, the president after George H.W. Bush was Bill Clinton. He only got 43% of the vote because at that time there was a third party candidate that people believe took votes away from the Republican candidate. So Clinton was elected with a plurality, not a majority. Every once in a while, a third-party candidate will get enough votes to really affect the election. So Wilson's going to become the president, and he's the last of the progressive presidents. By the way, he only got 42%, but Elise has probably heard of this term before, a landslide. What's that mean? If someone wins in a landslide, good, David. Like a lot, right? They overwhelmed their opponent. So while Wilson only got 42% of the vote, here's what the map looks like, Riley. See if this makes sense to you. We got a guy that is president, but he doesn't even get half the votes. That doesn't seem correct, right? But look at the map. When you see the map, the blue represents Wilson's support. So I would say that most of America wanted Woodrow Wilson to be president. True or false? Even though he only got 42% of the vote, because you have to realize that our population is still very greatly concentrated here, right? We're growing west, but these states, not a whole lot of population. Notice their electoral votes. 3. Even California still only got, Ohio is still twice the population, more than that of California 100 years ago. So the migration west, these places aren't very populated yet. Look at this, Arizona, 3. If you ask people to live up here in the north, like, where would you rather live? Like, especially if they're, like, weather is a big factor. Florida, Texas, Arizona, right? 3, like, we've got 8 times as many people in Ohio than they do in Arizona 100 years ago. So that is Wilson. And though he only got 42%, he wins all those states, wins in an electoral landslide.
As a joke.
Wilson's campaign is called New Freedom. Anybody remember what Roosevelt's thing was? Hint. Yeah. Square deal. Push rates. Hey, that's a good way to study, push rates. You guys should have Quizlet, and then you should have little small groups where you get together the night before the test and play charades. I agree.
In fact, I think we should dedicate Thursday class to that.
Yeah.
All right, under this New Freedom idea, there's that tariff word again. It seems like they're constantly trying to figure out what's the correct amount to put on imports, and how much do we intervene with these companies, with these trusts? The 2 T words, trusts and tariffs, constantly being brought up and debated about. Well, Wilson cuts the tariff by 33%. What's that mean? Remember what the tariff was for? Why did America institute this whole tariff thing anyway? What were we trying to do? What's the point behind a tariff? Come on. Don't just memorize information. I'm not going on until someone makes an attempt to explain what is a tariff meant to do. Case.
Tax like supplies and stuff coming into the United States.
Why? All you do is give me a definition. What is the point to a government, American government or any other country, implementing a tariff? Yeah.
But people are more likely to buy the thing that doesn't have the tariff so that there is more money in our economy than the other one.
Exactly. We are industrializing. This is kind of a new, this progressive politics comes out of this idea that America is changing rapidly. We're going from rural, most people living on farms, to people moving to cities. We're going from everybody making their living on farms to people making a living in factories. All of these policies are designed to, okay, if we want American businesses to keep growing, which we do, we like this idea of people moving to cities and things becoming more lively, right? We talked about why would you want to go live in the city? You got a nice quiet life on a farm. Hey, there's so much to do in the city, right? So we like this activity. we like the wealth that's coming from trading, right? So we don't want to put too high a tariff because we want to have imports. We want to like buy things from other places. That's cool, right? Especially the more money you have, like, hey, I got something that other people don't have. But so we raise the tariff, as Noel said, because we want our businesses to thrive. We want Americans to buy from American companies. But it's always a debate because you still need international trade. You want other countries to buy American goods, right? Right? If you're an American producer, don't you think it would be good to not just sell to Americans, but to be able to sell to the Chinese as well? Right? Or to people in Australia or Germany? That increases your business, right? Well, how much should the tariff be? If you raise it too high, then the other country will raise theirs in retaliation. Well, Wilson cuts it 33%. Maybe we've gotten to the point, now we're in 1913, that American businesses are becoming more stable. They would actually benefit from expanding their markets overseas. So if you cut the tariff, now the tariff's being cut to help American businesses. Does that make sense? See, it's never black and white, is it? There's always these nuances. There's always most of life is gray. And you got to figure out the balance and the best avenue to take, right? Tariffs, are they good? Yeah, because it helps American businesses sell to Americans. Because what have we found out in the last 50 years? American consumerism. Check your closets, check what's the label on all of it. China, right? So what should we do about that? Hey, we better raise the tariff because China's killing us. Americans are buying more products from China than they are from Americans. Well, if we put a tariff on the Chinese goods, maybe people will go and look at the price and go, oh, I think I'll buy the American-made one now. Make sense? But then if we raise it too high, then the rest of the world will stop buying our stuff. Well, he cuts the tariff by 33%. That's a pretty good chunk. This is also the time when we talked about those progressive amendments. Here comes the 16th Amendment. Now, this is kind of laughable. This is 1913, a little over 100 years ago. You had to pay a whopping 1% of your income if you made over $3,000 a year. Now, one thing that's laughable is thinking of your family only making $3,000 a year, right? But remember, it's 1913. A lot of people didn't make $3,000 a year. So you didn't have to pay any taxes. And when you did, you only had to pay how much? 1%. If you made over $500,000 a year in 1913, you were super rich. Even at that point, what was your percentage? 6%. And this is considered the progressive era. Hello? Remember what we talked about? A progressive tax meant the more you make, the more you get taxed? Because they wanted to make things more equitable, more equal, so tax the rich people. They're only paying 6%. Some quick math. What's 6% of 500,000? 6 times 5. 1% of 500,000 would be $5,000. So what would 6% be? $30,000 is all you'd have to pay. You make $500,000 a year in 1913, and the federal government only takes $30,000 of it. But it's still a big deal because what it does is it gives the federal government the proverbial foot in the door. See what I'm saying? So then we get to a point in America where at one point the federal government was taking over half of people's money. Oh boy, we don't have time. We could spend weeks studying this. And I've talked to a lot of people that can trace a lot of what's going on in America financially back to this. The way our financial system is set up, there are 12 banks, privately owned, not run. Well, there's a Federal Reserve Board that our government has set up to oversee these 12 privately owned banks from New York out to San Francisco. Have I ever showed you guys the thing you can do with a dollar? If anybody has a dollar bill, you can fold it in half, and there's a letter. Can you picture the letter in the middle of the dollar bill? Like it could be an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, or L, because L is the 12th letter of the alphabet. So there's a stamp on there that says this dollar was printed at the San Francisco Federal Reserve or the Cleveland Federal Reserve. We're a D. If you get a dollar bill that has a D in the middle circle, that bill was made by the Federal Reserve Bank in Cleveland. Anyway, that's who kind of controls the money supply in America. These 12 private banks. We have government oversight. There's a lot of people think, that's a little shady. The Federal Reserve is the ones controlling how much money is printed, how high interest rates are going to be. So, for instance, right now we're in the midst of this I word, inflation, right? You probably heard your parents talking about the price of everything going up. One of the ways to remedy that would be for these people, the Federal Reserve System, the heads of that to say, hey, we're going to raise interest rates. Why? Because that would make it harder for people to borrow money. What? You don't want to make it harder for people to borrow money. Yeah, but if you don't, then the money supply keeps growing and inflation keeps growing. Again, all gray. You got to constantly think about how high should interest rates be? Don't we want to make it so people can borrow money easily? Yes. But if it's too easy, then you got too much money out there and prices go up. Just like minimum wage. You guys heard about minimum wage? Oh, the minimum wage should be $15 an hour. Or right now it's legally like $8.80 or something in Ohio, right? And most companies are paying more than that because we have a shortage of labor. Well, some people's argument is, why don't you raise it to $100,000 an hour? I mean, because guess what it's called? Minimum wage. If the minimum wage goes to 15, then the price, it's like not rocket science. Then that means more people have more money. What's going to happen to prices? Hello? Not rocket science. The price of things are going to go up. So here's the key word. Ready? I know it's a big word. Minimum wage is whatever it is. You're still making hello? Say the word. Minimum. Does that make sense to your 15-year-old brain, 16-year-old brain? Because you can't seem to make that make sense to the educated people that go to Harvard. Anyway. You got the Clayton Antitrust Act. There's that other T word again. We're always talking about tariffs and trust, right? The Clayton Antitrust Act was meant to make the laws against trust even more stronger, right? Go back to the Sherman Antitrust Law, and then you had Roosevelt's corollary, and now you've got the Clayton Antitrust Act. That should be like an essay question on your test. Define or list and explain the Sherman Antitrust, the Roosevelt Corollary, and the Clayton Antitrust, and how they impacted American business. It made it legal for unions to go on strike and stand outside of their place of employment with signs picketing their own bosses. Remember, part of the progressive movement is strengthening the labor unions, giving the common man more say, democratization. We can't be run by a group of rich, powerful tycoons, that elite class. We've got to make things more equitable. So unions, we got to give the people more power to negotiate labor. Otherwise, we'll be stuck with these rich, greedy owners that are going to make 12-year-olds work 12 hours a day. This was set up, Federal Trade Commission, also during Wilson's presidency. One of the many regulatory agencies. What's that mean? That means we, the people, the government, creates an agency, a bureau. I say agency, you say bureau. Agency, a department, a bureau, to to run certain elements of our government. What word literally means people rule? Democracy. So what does bureaucracy mean? Bureaus rule. These agencies rule. We elect representatives to make laws, right? Some people look at American government and politics and say, since the progressive era, when we instituted all of these commissions and all of these regulatory agencies, we're not a democracy, we're a bureaucracy. The people we elect to represent us to go to Washington or Columbus, and they're supposed to be there making law, right? We're just following the orders of these people that we don't even elect. You got the FCC, the FTC, the FDA, the CDC. Hello? Am I hitting home now? The FTC, the FCC, the CDC. We didn't elect those people. Who's calling the shots? Pun intended. We should have got a drum. Who's calling the shots in America? I'm so good. Most of you got that. You didn't have to explain it. Right? When politicians do speak and pretend like their mandates are actual laws, what do they hide behind? They hide behind the recommendations from these bureaus, don't they? The CDC says, the FTC, the FCC, the FDA. We got to wait on approval from the FDA and wait to see what the CDC says. We didn't elect those people. But who's running things? Are we a democracy or are we a bureaucracy? Something to think about, isn't it, Caleb? This is all from the progressive movement. Hopefully you're a little confused, honestly. Cognitive dissonance, it's called. Hopefully in your brain, you're growing and you're not just trying to write notes and take a test. Hopefully you're thinking about things like, because my earnest hope is that you're the future leaders. That I know I've only got, what, if you add up all the high school, less than 100, but that's my little bag of hope here. Like, you're the future leader. So when I'm rocking in a chair, holding my great-grandchild, I hope one day, then I'm like, yeah, I remember telling those kids, like, there's hope. Things seem bad right now, but you can turn it around. What's going on socially, philosophically, religiously in America at this time? We've got transformation of American culture via transportation. What's going to be the two big inventions, quote unquote, or innovations going to change not only America, change the world? Because people are going to have the freedom to move at much faster pace. What's the two big inventions? Come on, we learned about it, spent a lot of time in 5th grade talking about what? The automobile and trains have already been here, and the airplane, right? This is going to, trains revolutionize, right? The railroad, obviously. The railroad obviously changed America and built the bridge between the East Coast and the developing West. But now it's going to get even faster with the automobile and the airplane. Hopefully this stuff right here is very redundant. I know it's not the first time you heard about Henry Ford, because we spent a lot of time in 5th grade, and you probably learned about Henry Ford sometime in junior high. Ford did not invent the automobile. The invention, quote unquote, of the automobile was a long process of many people making innovations to this combustible engine, this gasoline-powered engine. Ford's, why does he get so much credit? What's right in the middle of that word? Ford made cars affordable. His ideas of, he started off in his garage making one car at a time. He's like, this isn't going to do it. This isn't worth it. I'm going to have to make my car so expensive if I got to spend like weeks or even months making one car at a time, right? So he gets this idea, not his original idea, but he puts to use interchangeable parts and assembly lines. I will get mass production of all of the parts, and they're all made similar. and I'll teach workers how to do just one part of the job. And then the car will move down, we'll put the wheels on. Then the car will move down, somebody will put the mirrors on. And they'll all do one thing. And I'll have stockpiles of all these individual parts. And boom, now I'm making thousands of cars in a month instead of just one or two, right? What's that going to do to the price? It's going to make the price go down. So in 1908, when the Model T first came out, it cost $800. That doesn't seem like a lot, but we've done the math in here a couple times this year, and I think it's a factor of 30. So think about it. If you were going to get a Model T when they first came out, the equivalent today would be like 24,000. Is that right? $24,000, which is not bad. But how about by 1925, the price goes down to $260. The price went down like more than 60%, 70%, because of this mass production and so many people wanting cars. There was a rich supply and a vigorous demand. Price goes down. Half the cars on the road were Fords. Model T, the Model A. Then you got these guys from Ohio, right? Most of you know that the Wright brothers from Ohio, they started off as really young kids with a printing shop. Then they went into bicycles. I think we mentioned in here the 1890s, there was bicycles everywhere. Bicycles were, oh yeah, I showed you the video. On a bicycle built to, didn't we show that? I didn't show you that? Must have been second video. You didn't see the bicycle built for two? Does anybody know that song? Mm-hmm. Bicycle built for two. So anyway, bicycles were a big thing in the 1890s. But you remember the Wright brothers went down to what state? North Carolina. What specific place? Kitty Hawk in December of 1903. And this was history. Just 12 seconds. But that 12 seconds really changed the world. It showed that you could, with a gasoline-powered engine, produce enough power to lift a vehicle off the ground. Only 12 seconds and only 40 yards. 120 feet. Got off the ground, went 12 seconds, and they had to bring it back down, but that was the beginning. And it's going to have, of course, incredible impact on society. If you probably don't remember, but we talked in 5th grade, the Wright brothers thought, you know who would really want this? The U.S. Army, right? I mean, you probably don't remember, but the War Department said no thanks. But then, within 15 years, it becomes a weapon in World War I, right? So, but at first, the U.S. War Department said, no thanks, what? Why would they do that? Oh, this will matter. We can never do something like that. You ever hear of George Washington Carver? Anybody? Famous inventor, innovator, known for his use in harvesting peanuts. What you should know, beyond his innovative spirit and his education, was he started off working at the Tuskegee Institute. Remember who started that? Booker T. Booker T. Washington. George Washington Carver is working there, and he's getting paid $29 a week. That's actually not that bad of pay for back then, but guess what he never did? He never took a raise. Guess what else he didn't do? One of the reasons that in America, it's in the Constitution that there's a patent office is because, you know, it's a win-win situation. If I'm able to come up with some invention or innovation that helps overall society, society wins. But guess what? I win too, because I get a patent on that, and then I make money, right? That's the point. You innovate, you put your creative genius together to make the world better, and you expect a payoff. There's really not really anything wrong with that. George Washington Carver just no. He just went about his business, made his $29 a week. and never really wasn't in it for financial gain. That's a pretty laudable thing, right? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying it's something to honor, that someone wasn't in it for the money at all. Remember, it's not money that's evil. It's the love of money that's at the root of all evil. We are almost the same place they were. This is called the golden age of American agriculture. Why? If more people are moving to the cities, that means we have less farmers, right? If we have less farmers, but we actually need more food, think about it. Not only is the food needed to eat at your dinner table, guess what's in cities? Stores, restaurants, hotels, you following here? All of those places need supplied with food. So urbanization is actually going to increase profits for farmers. Does that make sense, Jake? The city's growing. Sounds like it might be a negative to the farm industry. No, it's actually a very big positive. There's going to be more food needed in more places, and there's less farmers. If you're a farmer, that's less competition. You're going to be making more money. It's called the golden age of agriculture. Oh, plus, Ford was also instrumental in this, the development of the tractor. Now, instead of like having to use these beasts of burden to do the work, the tractor gets more work done in less time. So you have a greater harvest. You can harvest and replant at a much faster pace to feed all of the growing population in urbanization. And all of the things that we could never do anything about before. You know, your cow got some disease, that was it. But not only is medicine growing in the human way, veterinary medicine is taking off. So we'll pick up here tomorrow with changes in medicine on the human front. Yeah.
There's your restroom.
Yep.
Thanks.
Must just take your stuff.
Yeah.
Remember, test it until Friday now. Crosswork tomorrow. Then we'll finish.
Craig, you skipped over a big event in history.
Ready? Yeah.
1912.
All right.
That's a big event.
How you going, Jaden?
Do you ever like lay out an outfit, put it on, then be like morning up, like, no, just for nine outfits, but then end up just wearing the same outfit, it's not an outfit.
Notes.
It's still one that somewhere in jeans. What was the score?
29-27.
Jello.
Yeah?
Yeah, because
Check out the video. Check it out, yeah. Don't, you know, go relax. You keep applying effort. Don't worry about how.
they look at it, it's gonna take some
If you have activity, you should do, right?
Put it on the bathroom.
No, they don't see how great, they don't see how bad.
Really? Yeah, there was a day or maybe two where
These are
I
the.
came back and said, video language or whatever. It was a technology. So listen. I'll see you next week.
Text.
So, you wanna know why?